Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to the Russian Grand Prix weekend of 2019. And today, of course, it is practice 2 at the Sochi Winter Olympic Park circuit. And yeah, welcome to the weekend. And hopefully, you guys, no matter where you're on the world, hopefully you are having a good week so far. And hopefully today you will, with me, enjoy practice 2 for the 2019 Russian Grand Prix. Of course, the Singapore Grand Prix was only 5 days ago. And after the surprise we had in Singapore in terms of who won the race and who got pole position, it really does throw up a result that this weekend is going to be something different from what we expected, say, a few weeks ago or a month ago. So I think we are in for an interesting weekend in terms of the pecking order. Maybe not the greatest racing, but we are in for another interesting weekend for sure. But before, as ever, I get into looking at the teams and how I think they're going to do this weekend, or what you should expect from them this weekend, let's first look at the results from practice 1, which took place about, 2 hours ago, 2.5 hours ago? So these were the results. Charles Leclerc P1, Max Verstappen P2, and then half a second back with Sebastian Vettel in P3. Bottas was 4th, Hamilton was 5th. By the way, though, Bottas and Hamilton were on a harder compound of tyres, so they can go a lot quicker compared to Ferrari. Albon was in 6th, and then the two Renaults, P7 and P8. Perez P9, Grosjean P10, Carlos Sainz P11, Gasly P12. Magnussen is in P13. And then it's Stroll P14, Raikkonen P15, P16 is Norris, 17th is Antonio Giovinazzi. And then it's Russell, Kvyat and Kubica for P18, P19 and P20. By the way, the reason Daniel Kvyat only did 5 laps and was down in 19th is because he had a fuel pressure problem in practice 1. Luckily, though, for him, his power unit, his new, completely new power unit for this weekend is fine, so he will be running that in practice 2. But now let's get into the teams and first go to Mercedes. And as I said in my preview, by the way, if you have not seen my preview for the 2019 Russian Grand Prix and what I think will happen when it comes to qualifying and the race, my predictions, then make sure to check that out. Link below in the description. You can go and check out that preview right now. For Mercedes, as I said in that preview, after Singapore, I don't think they're quite feeling that pumped up at the moment, because they were really surprised, as we all were, in Singapore when it came to Ferrari, because if Ferrari did not improve how we thought they, or how they did, improve, then I think, Lewis Hamilton probably would have won the race comfortably. But just the way Ferrari, just performed better in Singapore in qualifying in the race, it really would have surprised them. And coming to this Grand Prix, a Grand Prix that historically for this team has been very, very successful. They've won every Russian Grand Prix to date. They're not looking too great. And I think, if Ferrari can win around Singapore, a track that, even though they have improved that aerodynamics, is still not a track that is best suited to the Ferrari car, then I think it's going to be very difficult for Mercedes to be able to compete with Ferrari this weekend. I think when it comes to practice 2 and, the 1 lap pace, I think Mercedes will be slower. I don't think it will be, massively slower. I think, 2.5 to 3 tenths of a second at most, Mercedes will be off. But one thing to look out for is definitely when we get to the race simulations, and obviously we'll find out after the session how quick the Mercedes in lap time was. But I think race pace wise, Mercedes will have the best car. But really around this track, you do need a quick car in qualifying and the race. You can't, only have it one way. So it's going to be a hard weekend for this team. They haven't won since Hungary. They've only won 1 of the last 5 races in Formula 1. And considering how great they were in the first 8 races, where of course they won all 8 of them, they're not looking, Mercedes, that great right now. And of course, if you're a Mercedes or Lewis Hamilton fan or Valtteri Bottas fan, you'll be hoping that this weekend that can be turned around. Talking of Ferrari, let's go on to them now. And again, their new updates for the Singapore Grand Prix, the new nose cone and new floor has worked so well because in Singapore they got a 1-2 finish. And again, if they can finish 1-2 in Singapore, then what can they do at a track like Russia that will suit their car more so than, you know, a circuit like in Marina Bay in Singapore? So Ferrari are the favourites this weekend. I don't think they're going to dominate in terms of pace. I don't think they're going to be running away with this weekend, but I think they will have, at least when it comes to pace over a single lap, I think Ferrari will have the best car. Again, it won't be dominant. It'll be by, I don't know, 2.5 to 3/10 of a second. Ferrari also, like Mercedes though in practice one, have not properly turned up their power unit compared to what they can probably do today and tomorrow as well. So a lot more to come from Ferrari, but they are the favourites. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. After Singapore and the new upgrades they brought, it has really thrown up the order at the front of the grid. Not that Ferrari, you know, are not winning races normally, but, you know, Ferrari at the moment are the most competitive they've been since probably the summer break in 2018 was the last time they were this competitive. So it really has thrown up an interesting order at the front of the field and made things a bit more competitive at tracks where it isn't just about power. So yeah, Ferrari are the favourites, and you can expect them to be 1 and 2 as long as they get the laps right today in practice 2. Next up is Red Bull. Now, historically for Red Bull, this is not a good track. They've never had a podium here, and their best finish at this track is P5 with Max Verstappen last year and also in 2017 as well. And I think Daniel Kvyat finished P5 here in 2015. So this is not a good track for Red Bull. They've never gone well here. They've never been quick here. So with the penalties that they've took for this weekend, and by the way, just to announce, the 2 Red Bull cars have took a 5-place grid penalty for a new ICE. So they will be starting P10 and P11 if they actually, you know, try to qualify, which I think they will, because if you're only taking a 5-place penalty, you might as well, you know, do qualifying and try and get the best position you can so you can start maybe with both cars in the top 10. So I think Red Bull tomorrow will definitely do qualifying. And I think they will be concentrating on that a bit, but more so, you know, on the race pace where they're going to be quicker. But yeah, Red Bull, they're never good at this track. So don't expect anything pace-wise this weekend if you are a Red Bull and Max Verstappen fan, because it's not going to be a weekend where they're really going to be close to finishing on the podium. But the reason as well that you know, that Red Bull took on a new ICE is because, of course, their their engine supplier Honda, the next race in the calendar, Suzuka in Japan, that is Honda's home Grand Prix. So, of course, Honda want to do well at that track, and that's why they are taking penalties right now, so they can have, say, extra performance. By the way, sorry about my throat, as usual. As I was saying, so they can have extra performance than usual at their home race. It's, you know, called the Suzuka Special. We all know what that means. It means that Honda want to do well at Suzuka. And that's why they're now taking on fresher parts from their power unit, as we'll get onto later. Daniel Kvyat has a completely new power unit. So Daniel will start from the very back of the grid on Sunday, which is quite disappointing considering it's his home Grand Prix, but that's just the way it is. But yeah, for Red Bull pace-wise, they're not going to be good at all. But now let's get into the midfield. And first off, Renault. Renault didn't have the greatest free practice one because Daniel Ricciardo put it in the wall at turn, I think it was turn 10 or turn 11. And yeah, that's not, you know, a great start to the weekend, but pace-wise, it was okay. And I think coming into this weekend, based on the last couple races, I think Renault will have a car that can be in the top 10, with both cars. But again, as I said in my preview, and as I've said plenty of times in the last few races, it's all well and good Renault being quick compared to the other midfield teams. But we know that them getting that, crucial result in the race is quite difficult for them. Just look at Singapore, where they qualified P8 and P9. Daniel Ricciardo took a penalty. Hulkenberg then took Sainz basically out of the race on the first lap. And then they were both near the back by, lap 3 or lap 4. So Renault have really got to, not only showing the pace, which I think they are now more so doing, but they've got to start getting results in the race. They need to at least get the same finish in the race as what they got in qualifying, because if they started doing that, then they probably would start to gain points on McLaren, but I just don't think they're going to do that. But pace-wise, I think they'll be good. I think they'll probably be, say, P8 and P9, same as Singapore, which I don't think is really that bad. And I think if they can get that, and of course for the Grand Prix, if Red Bull do qualify in P5 and P6 but take those 5-place penalties, then they can start the race from P6 and P7 and be in with a good shot at a good result on the Sunday. So hopefully Renault can be in the top 10 with both runners, because that's what they need if they're going to end 2019 in a much better way than they've started it. Next up is McLaren. And McLaren in Singapore again had another good Grand Prix in 2019. Of course, with Lando Norris finishing in P7. And again, good race, outscored the rest of the midfield. And coming to this weekend, I think they're going to be absolutely fine. I think they'll have at least one car on the 4th row after qualifying. And then, of course, once Red Bull take penalties, they'll probably be on the 3rd row of the grid. But yeah, I think McLaren will be fine. Both cars, at best, will get into the top 10. I'm not sure both cars will end up on the 4th row or the 3rd row, depending where Red Bull qualify for the race. But I think they'll be absolutely fine. They're going to be absolutely fine. And when it comes as well to P4 in the constructors, again, I don't really think this is a debate. McLaren are going to get it, because the difference between McLaren and Renault at the moment is McLaren can convert what they do in qualifying to the race. Renault cannot. So, yeah, McLaren this weekend, I think, are just going to go about the business nicely and get another good result. Next up is Alfa Romeo, and this man on screen, of course, 5 days ago, led his first ever Grand Prix in Formula 1. What a mental moment that was. But for Alfa this weekend, if they are going to start a late season surge up the Constructors' Championship, then they've got to start here, consistently getting in the top 10 with at least one car. If they can get one car in the race finishing in the top 8, that would be a good result for this weekend. And really, I think Alfa need to get a car into the top 10 in qualifying. And I think in practice too, it would be nice to see Alfa Romeo have a car around, P9, P10, P11. Because, again, they really need to now start banging in, good performances in qualifying in the race. Because I still think Alfa, they do have a good car there. They're just kind of like Renault, at times incapable of getting the result they should get given the pace of the car. So hopefully they can have a solid weekend where they do get the best out of the car and get into the top 8, because that is what they need. Next up is Haas. Haas are running a hybrid of their older spec car from Melbourne, I believe. And you have to say, Haas are definitely getting closer to fixing the issues with race pace and tyres, because in Italy and Singapore, in those races, Kevin Magnussen was running in the points in both races for quite a long time, and much longer than we were expecting. So you have to say that Haas are getting there. They're not there yet, and they've still got a long way to go, but they are getting there slowly but surely, and hopefully by the end of the year, they can get back to kind of, I don't know, 2018 levels when it comes to the pace of the car during the race compared to qualifying. So yeah, hopefully they can do that. But this weekend actually shouldn't be too bad for Haas, because this track doesn't really wear out tyres that much at all. It's one of the best tracks for tyre wear. And Haas, in the past, have had good results here. So I think, they'll be fine this weekend. I'm not sure they'll be in the top 10, say in qualifying, but I think they'll be quicker than they were in Singapore, and that is a good thing, of course, because in Singapore, if things had gone more right for them, they could have actually finished in the points. Next up is Toro Rosso. Again, Daniel Kvyat has a completely new power unit, and he will be starting from the very back of the grid, which is a shame because, of course, it is his home Grand Prix. Pierre Gasly is taking on a 5-place penalty for a new ICE for the same as what Red Bull are doing. So Gasly is likely also to start at the back with teammate Daniel Kvyat. So Toro Rosso today in practice too, I don't think you can really expect them to be, going for it when it comes to pace over a single lap, because again, we expect them to be, at the back of the grid anyway because of the penalties they do have. So I think Toro Rosso really today are going to be concentrating on getting the balance of the car right for the race, because if they can get the balance right, then, who knows? Maybe Toro Rosso can come through and get a point. Next up is Racing Point. Singapore could have been better if they had more luck on their side, and if also the drivers drove better than they did. But Racing Point, I think definitely this weekend they're going to be stronger. They've always done well here. They've always been a top 10 runner at this circuit, so I think they'll be fine. I think Racing Point and Alpha for sure are going to be very close to one another. I think they have a very similar pace around this track. This track for both teams is kind of in between great for them and bad for them. It's it's an in-between. So that's why I think they're going to be very close on lap time. And I think definitely you can expect probably one of the Racing Point drivers, most likely today Sergio Perez, to be a top 10 contender like he was in practice 1 for sure, because Racing Point, of course, brought their new updates to the Singapore Grand Prix. And I think we'll get a better idea this weekend. As long as this weekend is a lot smoother for the team, we will get a better idea this weekend as to if the updates for that car are actually working or not. So we'll see in practice 2 and this weekend, of course, in Russia. And finally, of course, is Williams. Here is George Russell on screen, the man who won his... he didn't win his F2 title here, I don't think, last year. I think he won his F2 title in Abu Dhabi, but this was a critical moment for him this time last year, because I believe he took the victory that basically guaranteed the F2 title at this track in 2018. But yeah, Williams, they're going to be at the back. Robert Kubica, by the way, is taking on a new power unit. So Robert will be starting most likely from the back with Daniel Kvyat. So yeah, Williams, as usual, at the back of the grid. But guys, with now 10.5 minutes to go until practice 2, let me know in the live chat for the teams this weekend. What do you think is going to happen? Who do you think will be good? Not so good? Are you expecting a certain driver to really perform this weekend? Let me know what you think going into practice 2 and really the weekend in the live chat. And I'll make sure in the next 10 minutes to read out your comments. But before I do that, just want to say don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as we will be doing a watch along for qualifying on Saturday at 12 PM UK time. and then a race watch along on Sunday at 10 past 11 a.m. UK time. So don't forget to subscribe for that, and also don't forget to subscribe for consistent watch-alongs for Practice 2 qualifying and the race for every weekend in 2019 that is, of course, remaining. Bottom right of the screen, you can subscribe right there, or go to my homepage and do it there. And also, don't forget to hit the notifications bell so you're notified as to when I go live or upload a video. And also, hit the like button if you want the channel to grow, and hit the like button if you want this content to continue. But, of course, with my sore throat as usual, I'm going to have a quick drink, and then I'll get to you guys in a moment. And also, move on to this picture of Sebastian Vettel. Now, before I actually start reading your comments quickly, I have great news. Great news, and there might be further great news later this weekend when it comes to the quality of the streams. The great news from now on, I guess, is my Skybox has been fixed. So, there will no longer be a delay from my feed to your guys' feed. So I won't be delayed, you know, by a minute or a minute and 15 seconds that some people have said is how far behind I can be when I was on the Apple TV box. But now my Skybox is fixed, and now I can be right up to date with you guys watching the sessions. The only delay that I will have is the usual live stream delay on this website that literally nothing, literally no one on this website can do anything about. That's just the way YouTube is. So yeah, no delay when it comes to the sessions between me and you, and that is of course great news. I'll be able to keep you guys more up to date than before. Right, let me look at some more comments here. Or more comments. Let me look at some comments. Carsten Sorensen says Ferrari will get a 1-2. It is looking likely. Mostly an F1 fan. Ironic when you're talking about it, I get buffered. It's when I'm saying that, again, it's nothing to do with the stream. I'm talking about, of course, my feed watching the session. But yeah, I think on this website, I think the live stream delay is 5 to 10 seconds. So that there's always, of course, going to be a delay, you know, when it comes to if you're watching whatever session and I'm speaking, there is always going to be a delay, but it's going to be a lot shorter, about a minute shorter than it was before. Right, let me look at some other comments here. Hello to Shaman LP. Hello to CMDR Carder, I think it is. Will F1, if Haas improve right at the end of the season, you could say it's more of a disaster. Yes, you could. Nate says, once we get another great race, that's all I care about. Go Mercedes. Will F1 also says, McLaren just need to finish somewhere in the top 8, most if not all the races left this season to beat Renault. Again, I don't really think there is a fight between McLaren and Renault, because again, the reason the gap between the two teams is closed up is because at Spa and Monza, McLaren only scored 1 point, I believe, with Lando Norris, and they would have scored a lot more if Lando had finished in Spa and Carlos had not had the wheel nut issue in Italy. So that's the only reason Renault have closed up, because McLaren have had bad luck. When it comes to actual driving and pace of the car, McLaren is still better than Renault. As long as McLaren have luck on their side, and so do Renault, then I think it'll be clearly shown that McLaren have the better car, and this season all around are the better team. Let's move on to that picture of the Shell logo on the Ferrari. By the way, I know there's raindrops on that. It is not raining at the track. That's from yesterday where it is raining. Today it is mostly sunny, if not fully sunny. There's a nice day in Sochi. By the way, hello to Nikita Debaka in the chat. Hello to Thomas Birkenfeld from Nottingham. Hello to Caldini, great to see you. And Benod says Danny Rick for P6. For the race in terms of starting position, yeah, that could happen, as the F1 intro is now for me playing. Yeah, that could happen. That could happen with the Red Bulls, of course, taking the penalties that they have. So, we'll see. We'll see. I think Renault should honestly be starting the race in that position. If they're not in that position, then it's, you know, quite a disappointing result for this weekend. But we'll see, of course, what they do. And then we finally go to this picture, talking to Renault, of the end of their nose cone. And before we get into practice 2, I might as well let people who are new know what we do for watch-alongs on this channel. So, of course, I can't show live footage because that'd be breaking copyright law, obviously. So I do not do that. And if I did do that, of course, the channel would be took down in seconds. That's how quickly they can act. So I don't do that. What I will show is a slideshow of pictures. If the picture is ever, you know, wrong in terms of its placement, I'll just quickly adjust it during the stream whenever it moves on to a different picture. There should be one new picture every 3 minutes. So there'll be plenty of pictures there to keep you guys interested. And what I will do is have a running order running along the bottom of the screen to show you guys the live running order of practice 2. If you guys, of course, are watching this video. If you are listening, then I will be providing a radio style commentary of exactly what is going on at the track in practice 2. And again, my delay that I had before with the Apple TV box is no longer happening. I now have a Sky TV box that is working again, and I have no delay when it comes to my feed compared to your guys' feed. Again, the only delay is the usual live stream delay on this website that no one can do anything about. So there you go. That's what we do. And yeah, practice 2 will be underway in 2 minutes time. Mostly an F1 fan question. Have you ever been to an F1 race or seen F1 cars in real life? Yes, I have. The only track I've been to for F1 is the Circuit de Catalunya, of course, in Spain, in the or it's not Barcelona, but it's near Barcelona. They call it Barcelona. We all call it Barcelona when we go to that Grand Prix, but it's actually nowhere near Barcelona. Barcelona's like an hour away from that track. That track is basically just a right turn off of the motorway, basically. But yeah, I went to the 2014 Spanish Grand Prix whilst I was on holiday there in Spain. And then I went to pre-season testing, of course, in 2019. I went to the last 4 days of testing, and it was great. So yeah, that's the only track I've been to when it comes to F1. And hopefully, I'll let you guys know later on in the year, because I might have some exciting news regarding this. But I am hoping to be going back to testing in 2020. Of course, testing is 2 days shorter in 2020. We have the first test, which is 3 days, and then a 4-day break, and then the second test is also 3 days. So testing is 6 days in total. And yeah, I'm hoping to be going back to testing, and hopefully for the entirety of testing. And I'll let you guys know further on that once I know more myself. But yeah, we are now, what, 20 odd seconds away. So I think I should get that timer ready for the session getting underway. By the way, in case you guys don't know, practice 2 is 90 minutes long. The first 45 to 50 minutes is really dedicated to practicing your pace for qualifying. And then the final 40 odd minutes is practiced, of course, for the race on the Sunday. So once we get to the race simulations, guys, I will come to you guys in the chat, and you guys can give me some talking points, and I'll go off basically for 45 minutes. But yeah, the session in Sochi about to get underway. Currently looking at George Russell on the screen, the Williams, getting strapped in to the toothpaste car, of course. The toothpaste car, an absolute diabolical car. And now we're seeing Max Verstappen talking to one of his engineers in the Red Bull pits. And I think the session has actually started, but they're not showing the actual timer yet, which is really frustrating that they do this. But yeah, once I know what the timer is and I can sync it up, I'll do it in just a moment. And I might as well now get the running order up. By the way, this running order is not the live order. This is the order from the race in Singapore, because of course that's the last time I did a watch along on this channel. As now we're looking at Carlos Sainz in his McLaren, who is about to go out on track in a few moments, as he is also getting strapped into his McLaren. And yet the session is underway. So in about 55 seconds time, I will sync it up exactly so it is all synced up in terms of time. But no one at the moment is actually on the track. So yeah, no action at the moment, as Max Verstappen not in his car, as we are seeing, or neither is Albon, as here comes Lando Norris in the McLaren. This track is not the best for him because last year he threw away and bottled the F2 championship. He wasn't going to win it anyway, in my opinion, but this is the race last year in F2 where he lost it, as he now comes out onto the track on the medium compound tyres, I believe. Is it the mediums? Yes, it is. The medium compound tyres, as he now exits the pit lane and goes down to turn 1, and the timer is synced up now. And there you go. So 1 hour and 28 minutes to go in practice 2. As Lando now rounds turn 3, Daniel Kvyat, the home driver, is now on track. I did say it was mostly sunny, and when I watched qualifying for Formula 3, that by the way, home driver and Ferrari Academy driver Robert Schwartzman got pole position in F3 qualifying. It was mostly sunny, but now, of course, now it's later in the day in Russia. I think right now in Russia it's 3 p.m. local time. Now it has gone to overcast conditions, as Carlos Sainz is going to do a practice start and come out of the pits on the hard compound tyres, as a racing point comes out of Perez, I think it is, on the mediums. Is it Perez? Not quite sure. No, it's Lance Stroll on the medium tyres, as Carlos Sainz comes out on hard compound tyres. So 4 cars on track at the moment, and just remembered, get the slideshow up. So there you go. There is your slideshow, and yeah, as I said, 1 picture every 3 minutes, so that should be enough to fill the next hour and 26.5 minutes. And that is, I have to say, on the screen, a stunning picture of Max Verstappen, I believe that is. But we're now seeing Laurent Marquis talking to a Ferrari person. And there's Matteo Binotto shaking off a incredibly wet water bottle. Not because it's been raining, but because it's probably been in a freezer. As Sainz on the hard compound rounds one of the final few corners, as Lewis Hamilton enters the Mercedes pits, still with a hoodie on. So he's not really in a rush to get in the car. And to be honest, I don't blame him, because this track isn't exactly a track you really need to get out, you know, as soon as for. As Russell in the Williams is now on the track, and I don't know if Lando Norris is on a lap. I think he is because he's still on the track. I know Carlos Sainz, though, is going to start a lap because he now comes round penultimate corner, now comes into the final corner, and Carlos Sainz on the hard compound gets his first run of practice 2 underway. So let's see what he can do for a first lap time. In practice 1, the fastest lap, I believe, was a 34.4. So let's see what Carlos can do for a first attempt in practice 2 on 2 compound harder tyres. As also Stroll, Kvyat and Norris are currently on a lap. As Sainz comes through turn 4. Car getting a bit wide, but you have to do that to maximise the exit to get the most pace out of the car. Lando Norris does a 36.1, I think it is, on medium tyres. That's not too bad, to be fair, by Norris. Not too bad at all. Carlos Sainz, though, is currently 2 tenths down on Lando. But again, Carlos is on the hard compound, Lando on the medium. Daniel Kvyat goes P2, but is 6.5 tenths off Lando's time. Carlos now 6 tenths off Lando Norris through the middle sector as he now comes into turn 14, turn 15, and now comes up to the, I believe, this is turn 15, no, this is turn 16 and then turn 17. I thought it was. The turn 16-17 chicane, he now exits that and comes down to the penultimate corner, turn 18. And then final corner, and he is P3 and 1 full second off. Not too great of a first lap, but yeah, he's on the hard tyre, so that's not really representative of anything he can do today. As Lance Stroll goes P2, half a tenth behind Lando Norris. Also on track, again, Russell, who is currently on a lap, but also Giovinazzi, Grosjean, Kubica, Raikkonen, and Magnussen are on a lap. As they're not on a lap, they're on an out lap, sorry. As the 2 Ferraris now come out on track, Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel. As what we're seeing here, I think Daniel Kvyat passing a couple slower cars on mediums, and Daniel Kvyat is going to start another lap. Here's a replay of Kvyat turn 1, runs a bit wide on entry, and then has some kind of problem with his car. There's something wrong with his car then. Yeah, he went wide on entry to turn 1, and then he bumped over the orange sausage curb on the entry to 2, and that affected the car in some way. As Kevin Magnussen is about to start his first run in practice 2. He's currently on the medium compound tyres. As Kevin comes into the penultimate corner, as Russell goes P5. And Magnussen now starts his first lap in practice 2. Let's see how the Haas car is doing this weekend so far compared to the McLaren of Norris on the same compound of tyre. So Magnussen down into turn 1. Car looking fine so far. By the way, I just want to shout out Kevin Magnussen. I think people are really overlooking this guy. Last 2 races, I know he made a mistake at Monza which cost him the top 10, but he has really been out driving the car in the last 2 races, and I think this season he's been really, really good. But of course, people will not give him the credit because I don't think they quite look deep enough into how Kevin has done this season, as he's 2 tenths up on Norris in the first sector. And Magnussen comes now through turn 11, I think that is, and now opens the DRS coming to the middle sector point as Robert Kubica goes 1.1 seconds slower than his teammate. Antonio Giovinazzi does a 37.4, Romain Grosjean does a 36.5. Kevin Magnussen is currently 4 tenths up on Lando Norris on the same compound of tyres, so looking good at the moment for the Dane, K-Mag, as he comes into now the penultimate corner as Kimi Räikkönen goes P5. By the way, Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel currently on the lap as Kevin Magnussen comes around the final corner, goes a bit wide, but goes P1 by half a second, or not half a second, by 0.4 of a second. So Kevin Magnussen goes P1, and that's a good first run for him in the car. Up until the final couple corners, looked really good. As Carlos Sainz, who's now P7, has improved his time further. Here's a Toro Rosso on the TV of Pierre Gasly on the hard tyres. And Leclerc and Vettel are currently on medium tyres. As Gasly is just warming up those tyres. And yep, Charles Leclerc goes P1. We're now about to see a replay of Sebastian Vettel. Oh, locks up going into turn 13. The very heavy and unusual braking zone. We have to turn, downshift and brake all at the same time. Locks up, goes deep, does not hit the barrier thankfully, and gets going again. So he will go for another lap soon. But Charles Leclerc, his teammate, has gone P1. Here is Russell and the Williams on the soft compound tyres. And this is all a horrible double lock-up into turn 1. And those tyres will be now done, because they'll be rattling his teeth like mad. And Charles Leclerc, by the way, on the same compound of tyres as Kevin Magnussen, has gone 1.5 seconds quicker and has gone, I think, 0.3 of a second faster than he did in practice 1. And in practice 1, he was on the soft compound tyres. I know the track is grippier at the moment compared to how it was earlier on, but that is impressive. That really is impressive by Charles Leclerc. Gasly on the hard tyres is currently on his first flying lap, as Sergio Perez is also on his first flying lap of the session. And Nico Hülkenberg is now on an out lap as Pierre Gasly comes into turn 10, where Daniel Ricciardo put it in the wall. And he opens the DRS on the hard compound and now heads down to the middle sector point. And Gasly is 1.3 seconds down after 2 sectors. That's not too bad, to be fair, after 2 sectors. So not looking too bad for Gasly as he rounds the 16 and 17 chicane. And now comes into the penultimate corner. Turn 18. It now says turn 17. And now it's... So the final corner, turn 18. And Gasly... Yeah, Gasly goes P5 on hard tyres. That's very good. By the way, sorry if I'm slightly confused about the corner numbers. But you know what it's like in Formula 1, where sometimes you'll have a straight with a kink in it. And they'll count it as a turn, which is complete rubbish. It's not a turn. So hopefully as the weekend goes on, I'll get the numbers correct, as Sergio Perez goes second, but still 1.5 seconds off Charles Leclerc, as Paul di Resta and Jenson Button are watching at turn 12 trackside the cars. By the way, great to see Jenson Button back at the track for Sky F1, and I think for sure he will be on the Sky F1 coverage at Suzuka, because of course he races in Japan, so he should be there also. As here comes Ferrari as they're watching through turn 12. Very, very fast entry to the braking zone, and again very unusual because you have to be slightly turning left, downshifting and braking at the same time. So it's a very difficult corner to get right, because if you get one of those, you know, downshifting, braking, or the slight turn into the braking zone wrong, you will end up off the track. As and now they have an open piece of racetrack, di Resta and Button, to watch the cars go through. as that's a Mercedes on track now. I think of Valtteri Bottas. So we should see them go very quick in a moment. And hopefully they get back to the timing screen in a moment, because even though it's great to see the cars so close, I do want to see what the current timings are for the session. And yeah, they're just talking to each other about, I guess, how difficult of a corner it is. I have no idea. But looks interesting. And yeah, hopefully they cut back to the timing, as we're seeing some slow cars going into turn 10. Very slow Haas going into, not turn 10, going into turn 12 or 13, whatever corner they want to call it. And here we go. So Sebastian Vettel currently on another lap after that mistake he made. And Vettel has done a fastest first sector. Let's see what he does for the second sector. He is a quarter of a second up. So looking good for Sebastian Vettel. Passes the slow car on the inside, which is a Renault of Nico Hülkenberg. And now Vettel will come through as Leclerc letting his teammate through. Sebastian Vettel comes through the penultimate corner and now into the final corner. And does Sebastian Vettel go P1? No, he does not. He does not go P1. He goes a tenth and a half slower than Charles Leclerc. That's interesting. He lost a lot of time in that final sector. He lost about 3.5 tenths of a second. As a replay, Gasly goes deep at turn 1. And now we have a new system at turn 1. When you go off, you have to go through a Monza-style chicane through the bollards. Sergio Perez did not obey it, but Pierre Gasly did. As we're seeing Lewis Hamilton on an outlap at the moment. Valtteri Bottas has gone P3, but 8 tenths of a second off. That's not quite good enough of a first lap, but again, it's only the first lap of the session. And he's now coming through the second DRS straight on the track, and he'll be starting his first lap very soon. And of course, with Daniel Ricciardo hitting the wall at the end of practice 1, he is currently, I believe, having a new rear wing put on, as Charles Leclerc is on another lap. So once Lewis Hamilton, Alex Albon and Max Verstappen set a proper first time for practice 2, then I will update the order to what it actually is, as Lewis Hamilton now starts his first run in practice 2 and comes down the pit straight. Very, very fast pit straight, and getting a slipstream can actually be very critical at this part of the track. As he now brakes for turn 1. Oh, car not looking that great. I've got to be honest, at turn 1. He went wide on entry. As he comes through turn 3. Into turn 4. And let me just update that picture so you can see the car. There you go. As he comes to the end of the first sector. But we're not seeing the sector time, so I don't know how quick Lewis is going, as he's now halfway through the middle sector, and it's not really looking that quick. I've got to be honest, it's not the quickest first run in a session you're going to see from Lewis Hamilton. Not really pushing that hard, but I'm sure the car is still quick as he comes down into turn, I'm just going to say turn 12. And now he comes up to turn 15 and turn 16. And yeah, I don't think Lewis is pushing particularly hard, as we've got a virtual safety car. Virtual safety car. For some reason, what's happened? Obviously, something's happened out there. Hour and 10 minutes to go in the session. We're not seeing it at the moment. We're still watching Lewis Hamilton on board. We're not seeing why there's a virtual... Oh, that's the reason. They're putting the bollard back up on the escape road at turn 1 and turn 2. Because I believe... And here we go, Valtteri Bottas on hard compound tyres. Valtteri just went in between the two bollards. But someone has knocked over one of them. So now the marshals, the brave, very brave Russian marshals, have put one of them back up. And the virtual safety car period is now over. So that is a shame because we wouldn't have seen how quick Lewis Hamilton could have gone for his first run. But interesting to note, Valtteri P3 on the hard compound. Ferrari P1 and P2 at the moment on the medium. And Valtteri 0.8 of a second off. So yeah, if they were on the same compound of tyre, Valtteri would be, as I thought and as I said earlier, 2.5 to 0.3 of a second slower than the fastest Ferrari. And then behind Bottas, it's Perez, Magnussen, Grosjean, Hulkenberg, Giovinazzi, Norris and Stroll. Again though, I will update the order once Albon, Hamilton and Verstappen actually set a proper first lap time. Because once they do, and also Daniel Ricciardo, who's now on track. Once those 4 drivers set a proper first run, then I will update the order to what it is. As Verstappen, they're letting through a Mercedes, was that? I think. I'm not sure. Is a replay. Oh, Verstappen on the entry to turn 4, the rear of the car kicking out and almost putting him into the wall. Red Bull not looking that great. And yet, so he goes through turn 3, and then, yeah, the rear of the car just wouldn't accept the amount of turn-in that Max Verstappen wanted. So there you go, as Daniel Ricciardo is going to do his first run on hard compound tyres. So let's see what Daniel Ricciardo can do. His teammate Nico Hulkenberg is P7. I don't know what tyres Hulkenberg was on though. So anyway, we'll see what Daniel can do at a track that you have to say is historically not that great for him. As Valtteri improves his time by a couple tenths of a second. Good for him. And Ricciardo now comes through turn 1 and turn 2. And I have to say, this corner, turn 3, it's so easy for the current cars that it doesn't even look like they're pushing through turn 3. They're basically cruising through that corner. Yellow flag in sector 3. I don't know why, as Ricciardo 7.5 tenths down in the first sector. As Albon goes P8 for his first proper run in practice 2. Daniel Ricciardo is now coming through into now turn 10, the corner where he binned it. And now opens the DRS. And yeah, for some reason, they're counting this small kink as turn 11. I'm sorry, it's not a turn. It is not a turn. Into turn, well, now they're saying turn 13, now 14. I have no idea. I'll have to read up on the exact corners so I don't get it wrong, because the kinks in some of the straights here do make it confusing. As Lewis Hamilton goes P4, that's quite a disappointing first run considering he's on the same compound as the 2 Ferrari drivers. And Daniel Ricciardo comes to the end of his first run and only goes in P17. So once Max Verstappen sets his first, once Max Verstappen sets his first lap, proper lap of practice 2, then I'll update the order in a moment as we're seeing a replay of Romain Grosjean locking up into turn, whatever turn they want to call it, turn 13 I guess. And yeah, locking the inside front and locked it too much. The thing is at that corner that is interesting is you can actually lock up the inside front and get away with it. So locking up at that corner is not too bad of a thing. Sometimes you can't actually lose time doing that at that particular corner. So Max Verstappen has now done a lap and he has only gone 8th. Red Bull are really off the pace. I know in practice 1 they were P2, but let's be honest, Ferrari were not pushing. And yeah, Red Bull this weekend, not in for that good of a weekend, I believe. I know that's only their first run, but the pace of the car is just not that great. So it is currently Charles Leclerc in P1, Sebastian Vettel is P2, Bottas is P3, Lewis Hamilton is P4, Sergio Perez as a yellow flag in Sector 3, and it is Valtteri Bottas going off at turn 13. So there you go. Perez is P5. I don't know what compound he was on. Magnussen, P6. Romain Grosjean, P7. Looking pretty good so far for Haas. Max Verstappen, only P8. And then it's Hülkenberg in 9th. P10 is Alexander Albon. And then P11 is Antonio Giovinazzi. P12 is Lando Norris. Lando was on the medium, so that's a bit of a disappointing first run. And Valtteri, instead of Grosjean, he locked up the outside front, which is very easy also to do, especially if you get that outside front tyre. Oh, that was a very bad lockup on the hard compound. Very bad lockup. He's very lucky not to go in the wall, where Carlos Sainz famously did, of course, in 2015. If you get a wheel on that curb on the entry to turn 13, it can really put the car off. So it's a very critical corner in terms of where you place the car, also into the braking zone, as Daniel Ricciardo comes into it now on the hard compound. I don't know what his set times are, but now, unfortunately, on Sky F1, we've gone to an ad break, but luckily now I have Sky back. I can just rewind and pause to give you the rest of the order. So it is, Norris in P12, Stroll is P13, P14 is Pierre Gasly, 15th is Kimi Raikkonen, and then it's Daniel Kvyat in 16th place. Sainz is 17th, but Carlos Sainz, remember, did his lap on hard tyres. He could go a lot faster than that, and also he did his lap very early on, and he hasn't been out on track for quite a bit of time. I'm sure Ricciardo has gone faster, and we'll see after we come back from the ad break, but before the ad break, he was P18, so I'm going to leave him as that. And then, of course, it's Russell in 19th and Robert Kubica in 20th position. So that is the current order at Sochi with an hour to go. Ferrari 1 and 2, Mercedes 3 and 4. And then after that, it's really anyone's guess as to who's going to be P5. You've got Perez there, you've got Magnussen, Grosjean, Verstappen, Hülkenberg, Albon. Maybe even Antonio Giovinazzi and Lando Norris could be in the fight later on in this session. We'll see. Rex 4x4 saying it's been a while. Hope is all well, or hope all is well. Yep, it is, and hopefully for you it is as well. Pole tomorrow's Daniel Ricciardo. Well, even if he had the best car, I'm not sure it would happen anyway, because this, again, is not that great of a track for Daniel Ricciardo. 2014, I think basically that race, the Red Bull was in the midfield. 2015, no pace, and he retired with some kind of issue. 2016, I think he did have decent pace, but got involved in the Vettel Kvyat incident. that year, and then finished in P11 and got beat by a Renault in that race. And that was embarrassing considering Renault were backmarkers in 2016. 2017, he outqualified Max Verstappen, but was about 2 seconds off pole and retired within 10 laps. And then last year, started from the back and finished in P6, but had a problem with his front wing, which is why he ended up absolutely miles behind his teammate at the time, Max Verstappen. So you can see there, Daniel Ricciardo does not have a good history at this track. It's only bad. It is literally only bad for Daniel Ricciardo. If you look at Hulkenberg, though, it's not as bad. Nico qualified, I think, 6th in 2015 at this track, but got eliminated on the first lap. He got points in 2017 in the Renault that was not that quick. So Hulkenberg, to be honest, is likely to be quicker this weekend because Hulkenberg goes better, I think, at this track than Daniel Ricciardo. And where has Ricciardo gone? Max Verstappen has gone P4. That's an interesting development. But Daniel Ricciardo only went up to 16th place. So let me redo the order. So it's Leclerc, Vettel, Bottas, Max Verstappen as Russell stays 19th but improves his time to a 37.4. Max Verstappen is P4, and then it is now Lewis Hamilton back down to P5. Sergio Perez is 6th as Max Verstappen is on another lap. We'll see what he does. He's currently improving, so maybe he can go up to 3rd. But let's see. As he comes into the final 2 corners, the 2 right-handers. And where does Max Verstappen go? He does go 3rd, and he is a 1/4 of a second behind the 2 Ferrari cars. So Max Verstappen really outperforming the car at the moment, but I'm sure Ferrari can still go much faster than that. So it is, Perez 6th, Magnussen is now 7th. Everyone is in the pits except for Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell, Kubica. Magnussen is P7. Grosjean is 8th, and then it's Hulkenberg, Albon, Giovinazzi, Norris, Stroll, Gasly, Raikkonen, and then Ricciardo has gone up to 16th place, putting Kvyat in 17th, of course the home driver, and then 18th is Carlos Sainz. So with 57 minutes to go, that is the current order from Sochi in practice 2. Right, let me just see what's going on here then. Toro Rosso mechanics are looking at the back of the car for some reason. I don't know whose car that is. Is that Kvyat maybe? No, it's Gasly, and Gasly currently 14th. They're looking at the rear of the car for some reason. Maybe the rear wing? I don't know. But some kind of issue, I think, for Pierre Gasly in the Toro Rosso. As Robert Kubica is on a lap but has not improved. Let me just adjust that picture. He has not improved on his lap so far, despite being on a soft compound of tyre. As Kubica for the middle sector does improve his middle sector, but he is still miles off the pace. And now he comes through the final 4 corners, the left-right chicane, and then short straight until the penultimate right-hander, which is a lot faster now than it used to be. And into the final corner, and Kubica will still be in 20th, but how close to Russell will he be? He does a 38.0, so he is, 6/10 of a second behind his teammate. I think that really just shows you why Robert Kubica, as Lewis Hamilton, by the way, has gone up to P3. I think that shows you why Robert is not in Formula One next year, really, because he is consistently miles off his teammate, and you cannot be like that. You cannot be consistently miles off your teammate, because you will and you should be dropped. Look at Gasly at Red Bull. He got dropped because he was miles off Max Verstappen. So, you know, that's just the way it is in Formula One. As Russell improves his time again to a 37.2, but only improves by, what, a tenth and a half. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton is third now, from Max Verstappen in fourth and Valtteri Bottas in fifth. When it comes to tyres for the top five, the top four, Leclerc, Vettel, Hamilton and Verstappen, are on mediums, and Valtteri Bottas set his time on hard compound tyres. So Valtteri can go a lot quicker, and I think Valtteri, honestly, still looking pretty good. He's only 0.6 of a second off Charles Leclerc on one compound harder tyres. So I think Valtteri is looking good. As we have now 54 minutes to go, as we're now looking at Max Verstappen on the TV. But the two Ferraris, Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel, are now on an outlap, and so is Sergio Perez and Kimi Raikkonen for, I believe, their first qualifying run of practice 2. So let's see on the soft compound, what can they do? Can they show, especially Ferrari, that they have the pace to be on pole position tomorrow? Or will it be possibly this man on screen who is going to really impress on the soft compound tyres in Valtteri Bottas? We'll see in a moment. But we're currently looking at Charles Leclerc coming through turn 10 on the soft compound tyre. And now comes through the middle, now ends the middle sector on his outlap. And he will be getting his lap underway in just a moment. As also Romain Grosjean and the two Toro Rossos are now on track, also on soft compound tyres. As Charles Leclerc now comes into, Sebastian Vettel is ahead of him on that outlap. Charles Leclerc now slowly entering the penultimate corner, and now he gets on with it. So let's see what Ferrari can do. I'd be very impressed if they could get into the 132s. Honestly, I think if they got into the 132s in practice 2, that would be a very impressive benchmark for the rest of the teams in practice 2. As Charles Leclerc gets his lap underway, heads down to turn 1. And car looking fine. And now comes through turn 3, which is basically a kink on a straight. And Vettel letting Leclerc through, as Leclerc technically goes off the track there. That should be exceeding track limits, but it won't be, as he's already half a second up on his first sector from earlier on the medium tyres. Leclerc now comes into turn 7, now into turn 8 and 9, and yet this Ferrari looking a lot better than it did earlier on in 2019 as he comes through turn 10. Car not looking as good aerodynamically as a Mercedes or a Red Bull, but it's a lot better looking than it was before, as Leclerc for the middle sector is half a second up. So this will be a 33.5, I think. We'll see as he comes into turn 15 and 16. Oh, goes wide on entry to 15. That'll cost him a tenth and a half. As Leclerc comes into the penultimate corner. Slightly wider than he would have wanted, but that's okay. And Leclerc comes to the line and does a 33.4. That is a good lap. And he could have gone quicker. I reckon Leclerc could have done a 33, a low 33.3. So, very impressive by Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez stays in P6 on the soft tyres. Kimi Raikkonen goes up to P7. I'll update the order once everyone completes their soft tyre run. As now Sebastian Vettel gets his soft tyre run going. But that time by the man on screen, Charles Leclerc, that's a good time. Not amazing, but very good. As Sebastian Vettel comes to the end of the first sector, and for some reason they've got rid of the sector time, so Sebastian Vettel basically extends the track by an absolute mile. And now, annoyingly, as Sebastian Vettel is backed off anyway, annoyingly, we won't be able to pay attention to the timing screen as we have, as now we have to look at turn 15 with Paul di Resta and Jenson Button. I'll be honest, I don't know why they keep doing this again. As I said, I think a few races ago, this segment was great when Martin Brundle was doing it in 2017, I think, or 2016. But it's, you know, they've done all the tracks they can. There's no point doing it anymore. Surely there'd be some kind of new idea they should come up with, which would be very interesting. But yeah, hopefully they come away from this in a moment, because it's not exactly thrilling watching slow cars go through turn 15. Jonathan saying, my first time with you. Well, welcome to the channel, and hopefully you are enjoying the session. And again, if you are new, don't forget to subscribe, because we do watch-alongs of practice 2, qualifying and the race for every weekend in 2019. So don't forget to subscribe. For that, bottom right of the screen, you can do it there, or go to my homepage, do it there, and hit the notifications bell. As, yeah, we're just waiting for them to cut away and get back to the real action on track. As there was a Toro Rosso that went through turn 15 then on a slow lap, and the Williams went through on a hot lap, and it looked about the same speed. That just shows you how slow the Williams is. I remember Nib saying from Melbourne when he was at that Grand Prix that the Williams looked as though on its qualifying lap that it was on a race run. That's how bad the car is. And yet, F1 going quite slow down into turn 15, as I think most people are just trying to get a lap together in terms of getting the out lap correct. And yet, still watching turn 15, as we're now watching a Haas go through turn 15. And not looking too bad. Don't know what Haas it was, but looked pretty good, as there's a Renault on the TV going through turn 15. Now a Ferrari, I believe, of Sebastian Vettel. I'd love to see what he's going to do for lap time, but we're not going to see it, unfortunately, on the TV. That's a McLaren of Norris, I believe. But yeah, this is very annoying. And yeah, here we go. We're going to go back to the actual action. And does Sebastian Vettel improve? No, he doesn't. Sebastian Vettel... Oh no, he did improve, but only by a tenth of a second. So that's quite disappointing. As Daniel Kvyat is on another lap on the soft tyres. Let's see what he does. Comes into turn... now into the penultimate corner, which is turn 17. Then into turn 18 is oversteer on exit. Oh, that Toro Rosso looks hard to drive. Lots of oversteer through the final corner. Jesus Christ. The car looked like an absolute mess. And he still went into 9th place. A yellow flag in sector 3. Don't know who for. I'm going to assume someone has locked up and gone deep at turn 13. As Stroll comes into the final corner. Where will Stroll go? He goes P9, 35.1. That is pretty good. Only a tenth and a half of his teammate. By the way, again, we'll update the timings or the running order once everyone finishes their soft tyre qualifying run and gets into the race runs. Because plenty of people out there are still improving. And yet Daniel Kvyat losing the rear, an absolute treat in that final corner, pushing way too hard. I think the Toro Rosso lost a lot of grip at the end of its lap. Here comes Max Verstappen on soft compound tyres. Let's see what Max Verstappen can do. Comes into turn 1 and 2, and car looks fine. And then again comes into turn 3, which is a very, very easy corner. And brakes for turn 4. Goes a bit wider than normal, but that's fine. And for the first sector, he's actually up on Charles Leclerc. That's very impressive considering they have a new ICE in that Red Bull. And of course, the first sector is all about power. As he now comes into the middle sector. And he now opens a DRS. Going down now to turn 13. Or into turn 12 and 13. Whatever corner they want to call it this time. And he is still up on Charles Leclerc, but only by about 17 thousandths of a second. As he comes into 15 and 16. Car looking good, looking planted, and now he comes into the penultimate corner, does Max Verstappen, and comes to the line, and where does he go? He goes P1 by 0.3 of a second. 0.3 of a second, that's incredible. Where did he find that time from? I know the final sector is the best sector on this track for that car, but that is a very, very good lap. He's gone P1 and almost 3.5, if not officially, or near officially, 3.5 tenths faster than Charles Leclerc. That's a very, very impressive time. I know he set his time after Leclerc did, but that is a very good lap. Yeah, Ferrari are probably holding back some power, but that's a good lap. Very good lap. 33.1 for Max Verstappen. As we're seeing a replay of Romain Grosjean locking the inside front into turn 1 and going down the bollard chicane / escape road. And now we're seeing a replay of Antonio Giovinazzi locking the outside front, going down into turn 13. Doing the same as Romain Grosjean earlier on. So that's what the yellow flag was for a few moments ago. But now let's see what Lewis Hamilton can do on soft tyres. As one of the Ferraris of Charles Leclerc moves out the way. And Lewis is actually slower, a lot slower than Max Verstappen in the first sector. Almost 0.3 down. As Hamilton comes into turn 8 now. Car still looks good, but you have to feel that they're not quite on it like they were earlier on in 2019, this team. As he now opens the DRS for the run down to turn 13. And he's now 0.6 of a second down on Max Verstappen. And gets lots of understeer for Lewis Hamilton through turn 13 and turn 14. Slight understeer for turn 15, but that was fine. And now comes into the final 2 corners, and this is not going to be a good lap for Lewis Hamilton. Comes to the line and goes P3, but is about a second off of Max Verstappen. They better hope that Red Bull are pushing as hard as they can and that they are actually Mercedes holding back, because that is quite alarming. As Carlos Sainz there getting very angry with Lewis Hamilton and almost coming across and hitting him. Well, the stewards are going to look at that, that's for sure. As Valtteri Bottas is now on an outlap. And so is Charles Leclerc. So what I'll do at the moment is quickly do some of the order, because I think most of it is kind of confirmed. So Verstappen is currently in P1, as here comes Valtteri Bottas on his outlap, I believe. Yeah, it is. Leclerc P2, Hamilton P3, then Vettel, Bottas, and then it is Gasly in 6th place. If he can be there tomorrow in that position, then with the 5-place penalty, who knows what he could do. I will say, though, Alex Albon in 17th place is not exactly great, is it? I know he's on harder compound tyres, but he does not look quick. Perez is 7th, and then it is Hulkenberg in 8th place. 9th place is Lance Stroll, and then 10th is Lando Norris. Is Daniel Ricciardo goes up to P13. With Hulkenberg, Renault looked good, but with Ricciardo, again, he isn't that great here. Not looking that great for Daniel Ricciardo. Valtteri Bottas comes to the end of the first sector and has done a massively slower first sector than Max Verstappen. He's half a second down on Verstappen after one sector. That is alarming. Daniel Kvyat is P11. P12 is Kevin Magnussen. And then 13th is Daniel Ricciardo. For Bottas, really on this lap, all he has to do is go faster than Lewis Hamilton. And I think this will be a good lap. And yeah, this is so far a better lap than Lewis Hamilton by about 1/10 of a second. As he comes into the final 4 corners. But yeah, Ricciardo 13th. Raikkonen is 14th. As Valtteri comes into the final 2 corners. And Valtteri Bottas rounds the final corner. And where does he go? He goes P3 by 0.2 of a second. I'll update it in just a moment. But that is good for him. Not for the team. But for him. That is a good lap. Because, of course, if you go faster than Lewis Hamilton, you're doing everything right. Because Lewis, of course, is the best driver in Formula 1. And about to get his 6th World Championship. So if you're in the same team and going faster, you can't really ask for any more. Grosjean is 15th. Carlos Sainz is 16th. And then Albon is 17th. And then 18th is Antonio Giovinazzi. But I don't think Albon, who I think his car's being worked on, I don't think he has done a proper soft tyre run. And also, Antonio Giovinazzi, who's 18th, I don't think he has either. So we'll have to wait to see what they can do. Let me just read out this comment, as we don't really have any action on the track. Jason Harding says Max needs a teammate that can get in with Ferrari and Mercedes. Let me just continue reading that. He can't be fighting both on his own. The Red Bull is difficult to get in the window. Gasly and Albon haven't been able to get the car there. The Red Bull car, I think, you know what? Yeah, it probably is designed towards Max Verstappen and what he wants. But I just don't think Gasly, Albon, maybe even Kvyat, I just don't think they're drivers that can ever really compete with Max Verstappen. I think the best out of those 3 is Daniel Kvyat, and I think he would do the best job. But Helmut Marko has basically said that Kvyat will not be getting that seat. So it's between Albon and Gasly. And we need to see, really, in the next month or so, how Albon does. If Albon is like Singapore, miles off Max Verstappen, in terms of lap time, you know, once they're in clean air in qualifying or in the race, then they might go back to Gasly. Who knows? They might go back to Gasly, or even go back on what they said about Kvyat and go with Kvyat. Because let's remember, as now Sky F1 goes to an ad break, let's remember, guys, that this is the same Red Bull that said Gasly was going to be in that car to the end of 2019. And 10 days later, they dropped him for Alexander Albon. So Daniel might get in the car for 2020. He might actually get in the car. Because Red Bull have been known for not lying, but not telling the entire truth. So, yeah, we'll see. See what happens. But I think if Max Verstappen is going to contend for a driver's world title, he does need a driver that is not beating him, but able to complement him. Say, like a driver who can be as quick as Daniel Ricciardo. Because I think Daniel Ricciardo was someone who absolutely, in terms of his speed compared to Max's, he complemented Max and helped, him and the team at races where Red Bull really needed to take the fight to Ferrari or whoever. So yeah, it's a difficult situation right now at Red Bull. They've got 3 drivers who are all probably not good enough out of the entire grid to be at Red Bull, but those are the only 3 drivers Red Bull are going to put in the car. They're not going to put Nico Hülkenberg in that car, because why break your system of going with academy drivers for a midfield version of Mika Salo? And yeah, I just don't think Red Bull for quite a while are going to find a driver that's going to be able to complement, what I've just noticed. I spelled Gasly wrong. Gazalt. I've spelt it. They're not going to find a driver, as I was saying, for quite a few years who can be complementary in terms of speed to Max Verstappen. But you know what? Considering that I think the race runs have basically now began in Sochi, I can't confirm that because we're currently on an ad break. In the live chat right now, guys, bring up some talking points for me to talk about that you want to hear me talk about, and I'll talk about it for the next half an hour or so. So go ahead and do that, and I'll make sure to get into those talking points, whatever you want to hear me talk about. But let me see if there is any other comments. Plast Boromir, I think it is, says, how do you know that Hamilton is the best driver in F1? Well, officially we can't know who the absolute best is because we don't have equal cars. And of course, in an ideal world, let me just adjust that picture a bit if I can. Yeah, in an ideal world, of course, we'd love equal cars, but that's not how the world works, So, or that's not how the Formula One world works. So, based on, working out differences between the cars and how they've done this season in the last 2-3 years, I think Lewis Hamilton is the best driver in Formula One. I think this season, maybe he hasn't been the best this season. It's close between him and Max Verstappen for me. They're kind of 50-50 at the moment. But, to be the best driver in Formula One, you can't just decide that over a season. I think it takes at least a couple years to really decide if that certain driver is the best in Formula One. Lewis Hamilton has been performing at a top level for, 4 or 5 years? Max Verstappen has only been doing that on a consistent basis for, a year? So, I think Lewis is absolutely, based on all the evidence we have, the best driver in Formula One. But of course, he can be dethroned. When it comes to that, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, I'm sure they're all hoping they can do that. Right. I've just noticed, actually, a difference in the order. Valtteri Bottas. Oh, no, actually, I know what it is. I forgot to update Valtteri Bottas in P3. That's what it was. So Valtteri Bottas is third, Lewis Hamilton fourth, Sebastian Vettel is fifth. But the reason, by the way, if you're a Vettel fan or Ferrari fan, that Vettel is fifth is he did not really improve on his soft tyre run compared to his medium tyre run. So Vettel can go a lot quicker. That is for sure. Right, let's get into some other talking points that you guys want me to talk about. Van der Lake, do you think any manufacturers will enter F1 in the coming years? Hopefully, but realistically, no, I don't think so. I think because of the way Formula One is structured, with the, just the way the teams are with the FIA and the deals they have and the way they work together, I don't think they're keen to let anyone into their circle, if you know what I mean. That's what it feels like as well. It feels like the current manufacturers in Formula One have their little circle in Formula One, and they don't want to let any other manufacturer into that. And they're not keen, especially Mercedes, to allow, Audi or Porsche to get into Formula One, because they don't want their chances of success to be further limited if possible. Of course, Mercedes are still winning world titles, but they don't want to have more competition. They want to have what they have now. That's why the top teams are so opposed to the budget cap for 2021, because they want to keep it how it is, because they want to be at the top. Simple as. So I don't think we'll get new manufacturers in 2021 or 2023 or whenever. I think we can get new teams, but I don't think it'll be a manufacturer team. I think it'll be like a Haas type team where they have, a special technical relationship, let's say, with Ferrari or some manufacturer like that. I don't think we'll see a proper Audi, Porsche, BMW, Toyota in Formula One in the next 5 years. I think in the late 2020s, I think we can see that. I think, this time in 10 years' time, I would be surprised if we didn't have a new or, returning manufacturer to Formula One. I'd be very surprised. I think we'll get at least one returning to the sport, because if you look at the history of Formula One, every decade you'll get a couple manufacturers. Oh my god. Sorry, I've got to talk about this. What on earth was happening there at Toro Rosso? Pierre Gasly was right behind his teammate Daniel Kvyat coming out turn 1 and turn 2. Kvyat slowed down and Gasly clipped his rear tyre. Jesus Christ, what are they doing out there? That is very, very poor driving by someone there. But yeah, that was very scary. Sorry about that. But yeah, if you look at the history of Formula One, every decade we'll get 2 or 3 returning manufacturers. Now in the 2010s, we've only had one returning manufacturer to Formula One, and that's Honda, of course. Now you can say Renault, but that's only as a team. They were in F1 still, before they came back in 2016. So the only returning manufacturer we've had in the 2010s has been Honda. But if you look in the 2000s, we had Toyota come into the sport, BMW. Who else did we have? Did we have Ford as well? So, we will get a new manufacturer soon, but it won't be in the next 5 years. I think, again, this time in 10 years' time, we will have a returning manufacturer to Formula One, because they'll want to give it another go. I'm sure they will. Let me just adjust that picture and shrink it down a bit. You guys, actually, let me just extend it back out again. As I've seen a replay of it again. So Gasly clips the back of Kvyat there. I think Kvyat is probably at fault for that, because he was slowing up a bit too much there. But that could have been a lot worse than it was. Right, let's look at what you guys are saying. Let me have a look. CMDR Carder, what do you think about Hulkenberg and Ocon's height/weight handicap? Well, with the current rules, it's not as bad as it was in 2014, for example, but I don't think it's as big of a factor as people want to make out. Yes, it does, play a part in why they are as quick as they are, but there's been tool drivers in F1 before, so, who have done well. I mean, look at, for example, Jenson Button is quite a tall driver. Mark Webber, I think, was quite a tall driver, and they were great drivers. So I don't think the height and weight, when it comes to how great a driver is, matters as much as people think. I think it really does come down, again, to the natural talent of the driver as to how good they turn out to be. Because even if you do have a weight or height handicap, you can still be a good driver. No doubt about that. Why can't Red Bull afford Hulkenberg? Asks Taslim Ahmed. It's not that they can't afford him. They just don't want to put him in the car because they want to keep with their system of picking academy drivers, which clearly has worked. And as I said in my preview, which, by the way, if you haven't seen my preview for this Grand Prix, it's in the description down below, as Charles Leclerc goes miles off the track. Gets back on again at turn 4. I said in that it really does showcase the not the history, the success of the Red Bull driver program, that from P4 to P10 in the Drivers' Championship are all ex or current Toro Rosso drivers. So, there's no reason why they should break that system to go with someone who, again, is just the current version of Mika Salo, really. He's not a great driver. He is a midfield driver, and he's not going to be any more than that, especially now that he's at basically the peak of his career. Carl Dini, K-Mag, the most underrated driver in F1, possibly. Not the most underrated, but he is underrated for sure. For sure, there's no doubt about it. I have to say, I really am sick of the hate sometimes that Kevin does get. A lot of it is, genuine constructive criticism, but some people literally just rail on the guy for basically being who he is. Yeah, he's aggressive. Who isn't aggressive? Look at Max Verstappen. He's aggressive, but of course he's a lot faster and a lot better of a racing driver. But, being aggressive, there's nothing wrong with it. Some of the best drivers in history were overly aggressive drivers, like Senna, Schumacher, Hamilton at times, Verstappen, at the moment is one of the best in Formula 1. Obviously not one of the best of all time, but at the moment he's one of the best in Formula 1. As Kimi Raikkonen goes off at turn 1 and back through the Bollard escape road. But, if you put him in a top car, I guarantee you he would do a lot better than people think. If you put him in Valtteri Bottas' seat, Kevin Magnussen wins races. He absolutely wins races. Does he beat Lewis Hamilton? No, of course not. But he wins races. He gets pole positions. I have no doubt about it whatsoever. When it comes to qualifying, the guy is one of the best on the grid. When it comes to getting the best out of the car on a Saturday. On a Sunday, he's not as good, but I think his performance level on a Sunday is a lot higher than people think. Because let's remember, he's in a car that is notoriously worse on a Sunday than it is on a Saturday. And I think if you gave him a car that was consistently good in qualifying and a race, he would showcase how good of a driver he is. So, I think, yeah, if you put Kevin Magnussen in a top car alongside Lewis Hamilton, again, Lewis Hamilton would beat him, obviously, but Kevin Magnussen would win a race. No doubt about it. I think he'd probably win 2 or 3 races and get maybe 2 or 3 pole positions. He's that good of a driver. And I think, honestly, pace-wise, he's probably faster than Valtteri Bottas. Is he as good? Probably not, but he is faster, I think. So, yeah, he is underrated. I'm not sure who the most underrated on the grid is. I'd still have to say drivers like Sergio Perez. I can't believe people do not rate Perez as highly as others. I mean, there's people out there that genuinely think Nico Hülkenberg is better than Sergio Perez, even though Perez has, what, 5, 6 podiums in midfield cars and Hülkenberg hasn't got any. So, you know, it is unbelievable how that happens. But the most underrated on the grid, yeah, I'd probably say Perez. Magnussen's also up there. I think at the moment, Giovinazzi is also one of the most underrated right now in Formula One. Carlos Sainz as well. So yeah, there's quite a few underrated drivers. But when it comes to Kevin Magnussen, again, if you put him in a car that can win races, he will win races. Not loads, he won't win a championship, but he will win races if you give him the car to do so. Right, let's look at some other comments here. Gina, do you believe Red Bull Honda can give Max a championship winning car, or does Max need to go to a different team? This is actually the topic of a video I'm going to be doing soon. I don't know when, but it's probably going to be between now and, say, mid-November. I don't know when, but it will be coming out between now and mid-November. But at the moment, I'm not quite sure. I haven't fully thought it through, but I think Max has made the right decision in staying with Red Bull for 2020, because I think 2019 for Max Verstappen with Red Bull has probably been the most competitive Red Bull have been in the hybrid era. So, you know, with 2020 just around the corner, and 2020, by the way, guys, is only going to be an evolution of what we've seen in 2019, like 2018 was after 2017. So, you know, you can expect any team that, say, has had a good 2019 to just continue that into 2020. But I think if Max Verstappen is still in a car that is not consistently, this time next year, able to go for race victories, I think he should go to a different team, because Red Bull really this time next year, I think with Honda, should start to really get their act together when it comes to, again, being able to go for race victories on a consistent basis. And if they can go for race victories consistently, then Max Verstappen will stay at Red Bull, because he's good enough to be able then to to win a race. So it comes down, I think, more so to Red Bull, to be honest. Honda, of course, they're going to play a big part in the 2020 Red Bull car and whether it'll be quick enough. But again, if this time next year the Red Bull Honda package, let's say, is still not able to consistently go for race victories, I think Max Verstappen should leave, because I just think it'll take, say, too much time. Right, let me find some other comments here from you guys. Great to have you guys offering some talking points here. Let me find some other comments here. Chris, I think you're underestimating Max. He is an outstanding driver. He might. Oh, I can't even speak today. He may be outdriving his car, and other drivers may not be able to do so. I'm not sure there is another driver to backfill. Thoughts? Maybe I am. And you know, as you guys know, I rate Max Verstappen very highly. Maybe I'm underrating him compared to what the car is capable of, and you know what his teammates are able to do. But I still think you can absolutely find, or you should be able to be finding drivers out there that can complement Max Verstappen, and that's really got to be the aim. Right, let me look at some other comments here. Sandeep, is Red Bull car... Hold on a minute. I've just skipped past it accidentally. Is a Red Bull car really good, or does Mac? I cannot speak today. I don't even know what's wrong with me. Or Max makes it look much better. Bit of both. The Red Bull is a top car, no doubt about it. But Max does make the car at times look a lot better than it actually is. But again, it's a bit of both. It's definitely not a midfield car, put it that way. Right, let me find some other comments here from you guys. Say Rugara, who is the best single champion of all time? If you're talking about drivers who have only won one world championship, I'd have to say... Oh, who am I going to say? I'm trying to think of one-time world champions, if that's what you mean. I don't know. James Hunt, maybe? Kimi Räikkönen? Yeah. It's a difficult question to answer, really. But get this picture of the Red Bull back on screen. As by the way, if you're listening and not watching, there is a session going on, and we have 14.5 minutes to go in that session. But currently, we are on an ad break, so I can't see what is exactly going on the track. Marigin Fly says you can't make a car look better than it actually is. You can near 100% of its potential. No, I disagree. I think you can absolutely outdrive a car by basically putting it in a position that, you know, given the data that the team has, you shouldn't be in. So I think you can absolutely outdrive a racing car. There's been plenty of drivers in the past who have got more out of the car than is actually there, mostly because they're a very good driver. You know, Max Verstappen this year. Lewis Hamilton has done it in the past. Fernando Alonso, Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher. Kimi Räikkönen, at times, has also done it. Mika Hakkinen. Who else have you got? Probably say Nigel Mansell as well. So yeah, there's plenty of drivers out there, great drivers who have, you know, been able to put the car in positions where it shouldn't be in. So it can happen for sure. I don't think it's the case of, you know, those drivers are driving to the potential of the car. I don't think that is the case. I just think, you know, some drivers who are on a particular level of greatness are able to just get more out of a car than other drivers. And I think, you know, those other drivers who are, say, number 2 drivers at a top team or a midfield team, those drivers are more likely to get the most out of, or not the most out of the car, but, you know, do what the car, not do what the car, you know, to, the pace they get out of the car is most likely what the pace of the car actually is. That's what I'm trying to say. So, you know, if Valtteri Bottas is faster than Lewis Hamilton, then that is most likely... Oh, sorry, I've just seen something really dangerous. Turn 3. Oh, that could have been a massive crash. Lewis Hamilton's come through turn 3 past his teammate and a Red Bull of Albon. And Albon was coming across to the inside and almost caused an airplane crash of Lewis Hamilton. He's very lucky, is Lewis Hamilton there. But, yeah, you know, drivers like a Bottas or an Albon at times, even though I think Albon can improve his lap time compared to Max Verstappen, those types of drivers are more likely to, in terms of the pace they get out of the car, is most likely the pace of the actual car. Great drivers tend to exceed those levels. Right. Right. Fire Up says, was it Hamilton driving dangerously? No, not at all. I think Albon was just asleep, really. He should have been far off to the right. If you're going slowly through turn 3, you've got to pull off the racing line. You've got to, because you're going to cause something like that to happen. So, poor driving, I think, there by Albon. He's got to be more aware. And also, his engineer's got to say, hey, you know, Lewis Hamilton's coming up, move out the way, so we don't get a penalty or something. Right, let's look at some other comments here. Jason Harding says, hard to say where Max should go. If Max goes to Ferrari, he has Leclerc, and if he goes to Mercedes, it's Hamilton. Best time for him to go would be when Hamilton retires and takes his seat. In an ideal situation, yeah, if Max is going to leave Red Bull, the best thing for him to do is go to Mercedes if Lewis Hamilton leaves them. But I don't think Lewis Hamilton will. You never know, he could go to Ferrari. He could go to Ferrari because, you know, at the moment, Ferrari have two, say, equal drivers in Leclerc and Vettel. And I think as a partnership, Leclerc and Vettel have worked very well. I think as Albon, I believe that is, has just gone deep at turn 1 and turn 2 and completely blown his lap. I don't think, though, he was on a quali sim. Yeah, Leclerc and Vettel, I think, have been a good partnership, and they haven't really had any fracas, you know, this season that have cost the team points, really. So there's no reason why Ferrari can't go for two equal drivers. And, you know, if you have the best car on the grid, then, to be honest, it's probably best that you have two drivers who are of, say, equal pace, because then you won't have, you know, one driver lagging behind and possibly allowing the competition, you know, to sneak in and get a better result than is, you know, actually expected for whoever team gets in there. So no reason why Ferrari can't do it. You know, Ferrari, yes, of course, have a history of number 1 and number 2 drivers, but also have a history of equal drivers, you know. Look at, you know, right now, you have Felipe Massa, Kimi Räikkönen. They were equal. Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger. I'm not sure if Gerhard Berger and Michele Alboreto were equal. Maybe they were, I'm not sure. And then you had what? I think René Arnoux and Michele Alboreto. They were equal at the team. Niki Lauda and Carlos Reutemann, I also think in 77, I think they were equal. Lauda might have been told he was the number 2 driver, but of course Lauda did not take that as an answer. And then of course, Jody Scheckter and Gilles Villeneuve in 1979 were equal drivers. So yeah, there's been plenty of examples where Ferrari, you know, have a number 1 and number 2 clearly, like Vettel Raikkonen, Alonso Massa, Schumacher Massa, Schumacher Barrichello, Schumacher Irvine, Prost and Mansell. By the way, another equal partnership was Mansell and Berger in 1989. What are the number 1, number 2 partnerships were there? Lauda and Regazzoni. So, you know, there's equal examples of Ferrari going both ways in terms of driver status. So there's no reason why it can't work. There's no reason why it can't work. I would, of course, like you guys, love to see Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc in the same car, because then we'd finally get to see really who is the better driver. I think Max Verstappen is the better driver, but it would be real confirmation, wouldn't it, if they were both at Ferrari. And yeah, again, there's no reason why it wouldn't work, especially if they had the best car. Right. Let me find some other comments here. With 6.5 minutes to go in practice 2, if you're just tuning in, the running order is Max Verstappen P1, Charles Leclerc P2, 3rd is Bottas, 4th is Hamilton, 5th is Vettel, 6th is Gasly, 7th Perez, 8th Hulkenberg, 9th is Stroll, 10th Norris, and then from P11 to P20 is Kvyat, Magnussen, Ricciardo, Raikkonen, Grosjean, Sainz, Albon, Giovinazzi, Russell, and Kubica. So there you go. And yeah, session coming to an end soon. Tom Simon, what do you think the driver lineup will be for 2021? I'm actually going to do a video on that in October. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that until that video. But yeah, I'm going to do a video which is going to be called, guys, my F1 2021 driver lineup preview. And it's not going to be me predicting who I think will be in what seat. It's going to be a preview of who is going to be contending for what seat and what you can expect to happen in the driver market heading into 2021. So yeah, that video will be coming up probably between Suzuka and Mexico, most likely, because I've basically confirmed videos that I'm going to do between this race and Suzuka. So yeah, I'm going to probably do that around the 19th or 20th of October. So don't forget to watch that when it comes out. Let me look at some other comments here. Roxford, has Haas had any upgrades since the sponsorship stalled / never started? I don't know. I don't know, honestly. I think because the new parts on the Haas this season have just never worked, I think what they've done is basically just gone back to the car that was working well in the first 4 races. So I don't really think Haas are, ever again in 2019 going to use new aerodynamic pieces. Right, let me look. Let me look at some other comments here. Jason Harding, for Hamilton and Verstappen won't settle for number 2. It will be all-out war for sure. Fire Up says Bottas will be gone from Mercedes at the end of 2020. Surely he isn't good enough, especially if Ferrari are more competitive. Well, let's see. Yeah, Ferrari right now are good, but that doesn't mean that in 2020 it's going to be the same. Coming into 2019, we thought Ferrari were going to have the best car, and it took them, 14 races to get to that. So, let's see what happens in 2020. Because at the end of the day, as long as Valtteri Bottas has a good season where he is, like he has been in 2019, competitive with Lewis Hamilton and contributes well to both the drivers and constructors championships, then he should stay. Especially if Hamilton is going to stay, because again, as I said plenty of times before, you have to keep a winning partnership. Do not fix what is, not broken. And they don't have to. Yeah, if Lewis Hamilton leaves, then yeah, maybe they should, go for a completely new lineup, like, I don't know, Verstappen and Russell, maybe. But we'll see in 2020. This time last year, F1 was saying, for 2020, Bottas has no chance of being in that car. It's Ocon all the way. And look at what happened in 2019. Valtteri has had probably the best season in his career. He's out-qualified Lewis Hamilton, 5 times? Which is quite good, considering Lewis Hamilton is currently at the peak of his powers. And yeah, he's had a great season. So, let's wait and see. I hope to see a driver like Russell in a Mercedes soon, because I don't want to see him in a Williams at the back of the grid. But at the end of the day, if a driver who's in that team deserves to stay there, they should stay there. But again, we'll see. Right, let me look at some other comments. Michael Welch, first time here. Hello to you, Michael, and hopefully you'll be around later on the weekend for qualifying in the race. Says, impressed with your history. I disagree that Lauda was number 2 or even with any team driver. Well, that's not really coming from me, but that was coming from the man himself. Niki Lauda, in an interview a few years ago, said that after, of course, his crash in 1976 and him forfeiting the Japanese Grand Prix, and then, of course, forfeiting the World Championship to James Hunt, they brought in Carlos Reutemann because they didn't think Ferrari, or Enzo Ferrari didn't think that Niki would be as good after the crash as he was before. And Niki said that he was told he was number 2 to Carlos Reutemann, and he was to, accept that decision. And Niki basically said, F off, won the championship, and then as soon as he did, he left Ferrari and let Gilles Villeneuve have a go in the Ferrari. So, even though in that season he didn't play number 2, he was told he was number 2. But as usual, Niki does what he wants, and won his 2nd world title at the time. As the session is now over. Practice 2 is over at the Sochi Winter Olympic Park, and it's been yet another interesting session. Let me just get this text done. There you go. Practice 2 is over. And before I get on to my final thoughts, I'm going to quickly read out a final couple comments from you guys, and then we will get into the end of the stream. So Jason Harding, should Vettel stay at Ferrari or go to Red Bull? He has to leave Ferrari because he cannot perform to standard, considering he's a 4-time world champion at that team anymore, in my opinion. Michael Welch, Bottas is as good a qualifier. No traffic, not a true racer, safe but not aggressive to outdrive most top competitors. True, but as a number 2 driver, I think he is a pretty handy driver to have. And the final comment goes to A Shavin 301, who says, why would people want Charles and Max in the same team? I think you know why. Because who doesn't want to see that? 2 top young drivers in the same team. 2 drivers who are probably going to dominate Formula 1 after Lewis Hamilton retires. Who wouldn't want to see that? That's a dream. A match made in heaven, maybe. But, thank you guys for commenting and offering some talking points. Great to chat to you guys as always. But let me now get on to the final talking points of practice 2 and, Formula 1 today at Russia on Friday. So, Mercedes, not as quick as Ferrari. You have to say it. Ferrari are the favourites for pole position. I know Max Verstappen's P1, but I think Ferrari can go a lot quicker. And also, Verstappen does have a 5-place penalty for a new ICE. So what Verstappen does tomorrow in Q3 is not really going to matter that much. So I think Ferrari are the favourites. Valtteri Bottas looks good, faster than Lewis Hamilton. As long as he can do that tomorrow, he'll be all good. And Mercedes, as I expected, they're about 0.3 of a second off Ferrari in qualifying trim. That's not actually that bad because in race trim, as we know, Mercedes are faster. So going to be close on Sunday, but on Saturday it is Ferrari's pole position and front row really to lose. Red Bull look a bit quicker with Max Verstappen than expected, but again, 5-place penalty for Verstappen and Albon. So what they do doesn't really matter when it comes to the fight for pole. Renault with Hulkenberg look good, but Ricciardo, as ever, at a track that he does not like, it's not looking great for him. And I think Renault definitely are looking good again with one car, but with the other car, they're going to struggle to get both into the top 10 in qualifying, I think. McLaren, once McLaren get the laps in, and by the way, the reason Carlos Sainz is in 16th place is because he didn't get a proper soft tyre run in. That lap, I believe, was done on, I think, medium tyres. So, yeah, not too great there for Carlos Sainz. But, again, he can go a lot faster if he doesn't have traffic affecting his laps. So, McLaren can go a lot faster, that is for sure. Alpha, look okay. I think Alpha can go a lot faster than what they've done, 14th and 18th. I think definitely Alpha can improve, and I think they will improve. But yeah, not looking great at the moment. Haas are looking better than Singapore, and that is a positive. And I think Haas might have actually a fighting chance of getting into the top 10 in the qualifying session tomorrow. By the way, I've just noticed Alex Albon has gone up to P10 at the very end of the session. So sorry that's not updated, but there you go. Didn't expect it to happen. Toro Rosso look okay. Nothing great. Not too bad. Not great, not terrible. But of course, if both drivers taking penalties for the race, they're not really going to have an eventful qualifying at all. Sad for Kvyat, of course. He is starting from the back. Racing Point look good. Both drivers in the top 10, I believe. So look out for Racing Point tomorrow. And Williams, of course, are at the very, very back. But guys, that has been it for the Practice 2 watch along today for the 2019 Russian Grand Prix. Thank you guys for coming along and being part of the stream, and again adding comments and supplying talking points for me to talk about with you guys during the latter part of the session and the stream. Thank you guys for contributing that. And again, if you are new around here, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as we do watch-alongs for Practice 2, qualifying and the race every weekend of the season. And we will be doing the same, of course, tomorrow. Just to let you guys know of what's coming up tomorrow, I will be live at 12 PM UK time, because qualifying, of course, starts an hour later. 1 PM UK time, qualifying gets underway. I'll be underway at 12. And then I will be uploading my review of qualifying around, say, 3:15 PM UK time. So don't forget to come along to that. And again, don't forget to subscribe, bottom right of the screen. You can do it right there, or go to my homepage and do it there. And hit the notifications bell if you want to be notified as to when I go live and when I upload and stuff like that. Don't forget to like this video, because it does help out the channel grow. And also, it does show me that you do enjoy the content and you want to see the content continue. And also, comment down below what you thought of this video, and comment down below, going into qualifying, what do you think is going to happen? And when it comes to the talking points we were talking about the last 45 minutes of the session, what did you think of what I had to say? Let me know in the comment section down below. And also, don't forget to join my Discord, link below in the description. That's the best place for notifications of my videos and streams, and it is the hardcore Chazza HDF1 community. We have about 370 or 380 people in that server, so don't forget to join that. Also, like my Facebook, Chazza HDF1, it is on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110, and as well follow me on my website, chazzahd.com, for more content like this. But guys, until 12 PM UK time tomorrow, live for qualifying for the 2019 Russian Grand Prix, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.